السلام عليكم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على خير المرسلين محمد النبي الأمي وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. It's again an honor to be with all of you here tonight at MSA West, at the MSA West conference. I mentioned this before at a session that I grew up with MSA West, so coming back here is a little bit like coming back home, and it's nice to see that the work continues and is getting stronger and stronger. This is a much bigger audience, mashallah, than some of the audiences that we've had in the past. And clearly, mashallah, the workers behind the MSA West conference have some amazing talent and vision, as my husband mentioned. The idea of having the bottles, the green bottles, bringing in the deaf community and welcoming them and embracing them. These are all steps in a beautiful direction, and it's very encouraging to see. I'm supposed to cover 3 of the points that my husband mentioned, outlined. And I believe that the first point that I'm going to talk about is the most important of the 10. Not just because I'm talking about it, but because this one point has to become actualized for the other points to really flourish. And some of the scholars mention that this issue in Islam is 1/3 of the religion. And that's why I cannot emphasize it enough. And it's the issue of sincerity. For the Islamic worker, it's where you start. The person who is involved in MSA, don't even think about all of the different issues you're facing if you don't start out developing this quality of sincerity. And what I want to do is describe the sincere person, because a lot of times when we hear about the issue of sincerity or being sincere to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not wanting to do things for people, we don't know how it manifests itself on a practical level or on an MSA level. So I'm just going to describe a profile of a person that would be considered sincere in terms of the outward actions are a reflection of something that is an internal state. I also want to start off by saying that there's so much good work, good public work that happens in MSA. And there's a grave warning from the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ that good work on its own can actually land us somewhere bad. That the first 3 people who are thrown into hellfire, a scholar of religion, a wealthy man who gives a lot of charity, and someone who dies on the battlefield, in something that would be considered jihad, struggle, right? And these 3 people are thrown into hellfire because of the fact that they were doing these outwardly good deeds that are amazing, so that people could praise them, so that they would hear their name being mentioned. And subhanAllah, these are the first 3 people who are going to be thrown into hellfire. So realizing that without sincerity, all of our good deeds are in vain. Without doing it for the right reason, it's the wrong act, no matter how good the act may seem on the outside. So this is really something, again, that is the pillar and the core of everything else. The person who is sincerely working for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not concerned with titles and positions. They don't need to be president. They don't need to be in charge. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said, we do not give leadership to those who seek it. Because leadership in Islam is a trust. It's an amana. It's something that we will be asked about. Having a title is not something that is an encouraging thing that you want to have. You want to be able to do the work without the title, because the title, as soon as you assume a title, then that's something that you have to answer for in the Day of Judgment. It's not a simple matter just to be elected to the position of president or any other title that requires you to take care of others. The sincere person, they promote the cause, they don't promote themselves. So whatever that issue is that the MSA is working on, they will make that the focal point. They will connect people to their mission. They will not connect people to their person. And one of my shuyukh taught me this. He said that there's a lot of religious teachers out there. The teacher that connects you to your mission is sincere. Beware of the one who's trying to connect you to their person. This is something for us to think about, even in terms of the MSA atmosphere, there are people who are going to be more charismatic, more eloquent, and that's not a bad quality in and of itself, but when those qualities are used to create a following for one's own person, then that can be a problem. That can be a sign of a person not being very sincere. As a matter of fact, in the time of Umar radiallahu anhu, when he was Khalifa, there was one of the companions, Ubay ibn Ka'b, and he was being followed around by some other companions. And Umar saw the way that they were following him, and he actually took his stick and he struck Ubay ibn Ka'b. So the companions, they got startled by this, and they said, why are you doing this? Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, why are you doing this? And he told the people who were following Ubay ibn Ka'b, the manner of your following is a humiliation for you and a fitna for the person, or a trial for the person that you're following. So Islam does not ask from us to either be the person who is creating a following, and it also doesn't ask of us to humiliate ourselves before someone of that nature who's seeking a following. So thinking about this in the MSA context, it means that sometimes there's drama in the MSA, sometimes there's fitna, there's infighting of some sort. And let's get real about it. Whenever that happens, there's a leader amongst the people who are causing the issue, and there's a leader in the other side, and there's a following. And whatever this one person says becomes the truth to whoever is part of their following. Okay, so a sincere person, they measure things according to the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not according to a particular personality. This is an important quality, again, to think about and to develop. The sincere person doesn't know that they are sincere. Someone says, I'm so sincere. That's a very good sign of them not being very sincere. They're not aware of their sincerity. They're striving for it. They're making dua, they're praying for it. But in the end, they're between fear and hope. They hope that they are, and they're also afraid of any shortcomings in their intention. So this is something that's really important to think about, is that it's okay to not be 100% confident in your intention. You try your best, but at the end you can never be certainly sure, and you have to continue afterwards. The sincere person doesn't just hold themselves accountable in terms of their relationship with Allah, but also in their relationship with His creation. So this is something that I think is extremely important, because we don't hear about it a lot of times when we talk about spirituality, or loving Allah, or tawbah, the idea of repenting to Him and asking for His forgiveness. We talk about the person, the individual, and their creator, and we ignore the fact that there's also responsibility to the creation. So part of being sincere is actually asking yourself this question: did I mistreat people? Did I say something wrong? Was that backbiting? Did I assume the wrong things? Did I give people their rights? I'm responsible for them. Did I actually do my job right? Did I try my best in fulfilling these things? The sincere person holds themselves accountable. You're not arrogant about your title or position. You're actually the opposite. You're vulnerable and humble in front of Allah, in front of Allah, God Almighty, with the way that you're dealing with the responsibility that you're carrying for His sake. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, he described riya, which is basically seeking admiration from people, as being as subtle as a black ant crawling on a black rock on a dark night. That's how subtle a wrong intention can crawl up upon our hearts. And so having that sense of vigilance always is important. You don't hear a talk once and think, okay, now I understand sincerity, I don't have to think about it again. No, it's a part of your daily life as a Muslim and as an MSA worker. It's a part of the way you enter the meetings, the intentions that you have before you join the meeting and start participating, is you start thinking, am I saying this so people can think that I'm active? Or am I saying this because I want to contribute? Am I saying this so that other people can think, again, something great about me? Because MSA work is so public, this is something that has to be investigated always. Am I saying this so that brothers can think I'm religious, or sisters can think I'm religious, or think I'm cool? And it doesn't even have to be religious work. A person can use the MSA setting to be the comedian or whatnot, but they're seeking admiration and attention. And again, sincerity is when you're seeking the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You're cognizant of Him being your goal, not the people. The sincere person also doesn't have false humility. What is false humility? It's when you tell someone, can you please give the 15-minute talk after prayer, the khatira, and they say, oh, no, I'm not good enough. I'm not a good enough person to do this. You're saying it's just a simple 15-minute reminder, and they say, no, I'm such a bad person, I'm not worthy of such a thing. This is false humility. If you're capable of doing the task that you're asked to do, and you can try your best, then your job is actually to purify the intention, to go back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to pray that Allah allows you to be sincere, and fulfill the task that's given to you as best as you can. A lot of times when people are saying, no, I'm not worthy, it's actually fear of failing publicly, or it's fear of being vulnerable. So the one whose heart is tied to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His pleasure, they have courage. The sincere person has courage. They don't fear blame. They can be the only the only person in the MSA or even in their campus that's standing up for something that's the truth and they know it, and they won't back down because they're sincere to Allah, even if it doesn't buy them any friends. The sincere person deals with blame and praise in the same way. Someone comes to them and says, I didn't like the way you did this, or you messed up, or I don't think you're right about this. They take blame from others and they take praise. Someone says, I like the way you did this, this was great, this is wonderful. Both are equal to them because they're both just feedback. There's nothing inherently good or bad about either one. Both of them are feedback, both of them are actually beneficial if a person is actually, their goal is to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The sincere person doesn't care what post they're given, which means that if there's a project and they need you to make a flyer, you don't say, but I wanted to be the moderator. All right? They don't care what post they're given, because the act itself is a symbolic act of worship. So no matter where you place them, they're serving Allah. They're not measuring what is worthy and valuable according to the standards of what people think is admirable. They're measuring things according to what Allah will reward. And Allah will reward all of those who are involved in a project, those who are behind the scenes and those who are on stage. And actually the people who are behind the scenes, it's easier for them to deal with their intentions because of the fact that others are not seeing them do the hard work that they're doing. And usually they are the backbones of their organizations, those who are doing the behind-the-scenes work. The sincere person doesn't cave into peer pressure. So Ibn Taymiyyah talks about this. He says that you are never a minority. The person who is standing for the truth is never a minority, no matter how many people are standing in front of them against them. Whether you're dealing with the issue of what's going on in Palestine, or you're dealing with Muslims disagreeing about things, if you're standing for the truth, you are always with the majority, because you are standing with the angels and all of creation which has submitted to the will of Allah. You are standing with all of the righteous people in Islamic history, the prophets, the righteous people. You are part of the majority. So never see yourself in a room, whether it's your class on Western liberal feminism, or your class on Zionism, whatever class you're taking, never feel like you're the only voice in the room that has the truth. You are the representative of the truth in that space, but you are standing with the majority. And so with that, you never cave into peer pressure. The sincere person realizes that there is so much reward in serving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that they enjoy the simple tasks that will bring about that reward. So there's a statement of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ that's quite inspiring. It's الدال على الخير كفاعله, or the person who is guiding other people to goodness is like the one who did the goodness. So the one who made the flyer gets the reward of the person who gave the talk. The one who told people to go to the event and publicized it, they get the reward of all of those people who benefited from that function. This is very inspiring, which means that the person who is literally just a supporter of that function that's going on, all of the benefit and reward that comes from it will be in their scales, as long as they are playing that role. So again, this is another, I want to say that the sincere person is an edger-monger. They know where to hit up the gold mines of reward when it comes to the MSA work. I don't have much time left, and I was actually supposed to talk about 3 qualities, and I didn't get past the first. I wanted to mention just quickly that there's a book that I highly recommend whenever I'm sitting with sisters in a circle. We don't go into any other subject, not tafsir, nothing, until we cover this small book in sincerity. I picked it up actually right now at the mass table. They're selling it for $10. But this is not just to be an advertisement for mass. This is truly an excellent book, and I recommend MSAs utilize it. It's based on a translation of a book that Sheikh Qaradawi wrote, sort of an abridgment of it. But it's imperative for young people, and especially Islamic workers, to start their development off with that book. There's another book that I want to mention also that's also being sold, and that's Rising Soul, A Guide to Personal Development. And this is organized so that it can facilitate a halaqah, a study circle. Each chapter is for one study circle that you do. And what's nice is that it connects the spiritual element to the character trait that you're supposed to develop. A lot of books that deal with spirituality don't deal with the character that's supposed to come out of that. So to embody these values, this is a wonderful book to turn to. I'm just going to mention 2 things because I'm running out of time. When it comes to the issue of servitude, I don't actually believe in the concept of leadership training. Sorry. 1 minute. How do I do this in 1 minute? I'll do it in a story. Umar radiallahu anhu, one of the great khulafa, he was someone who took his position as the leader of the believers in such an exemplary way because he embodied what it meant to be a servant. Servitude is leadership. And every person in the MSA can be a servant. And if they have this quality of servitude, then they have this, basically they have this Western concept of leadership. Servitude, according to Umar, he's walking down the street, and Umar liked to camouflage himself as one of the ordinary people so that he could hear what others were saying about him and take this as actually advice and for himself to better the way that he was ruling. So he's walking, and he sees that a man is in distress, and he asks the man, why are you in distress? And he says that his wife is going into labor, and there's no one to help him, and he's really freaking out. So Umar calls his wife to come, and he tells his wife to bring some grain and oil. And so his wife goes and delivers the other man's, the baby, basically. And Umar stands there and makes a fire and starts cooking food for him. And this man doesn't know that this is Umar who's doing this. He doesn't know that the Khalifa of the Muslims is coming and his wife is delivering her baby. And then he hears his wife's voice come out, and his wife says, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, it's a boy. And then the man gets startled, and he looks at Umar. And he's just, mind-boggled at the fact that the Khalifa has come and is serving him, is literally cooking for his family. And so I say this, and I have to end and conclude with the fact that if you really want to be a leader, you have to be a servant first, and you have to take care of everyone around you. And whatever is beneficial, inshallah, is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and what is wrong and mistaken is from myself and the shaitan. Jazakumullah khair.
get it all out. Huh? We said it in the beginning. You guys should have been listening. Okay, you can check that out. I have these to look at. I think I have some for you. I'll answer this one. There's not, some questions really have nothing to do with the topic, but it's okay because at least you're asking about things that you care about, so that's important. So this one is, what's your opinion on marrying a non-Muslim woman? I don't agree with it, to be honest, to tell you the truth. And I know other imams that won't do it, that they won't marry brothers to Christians or Jews, because they just don't think it's the right thing to do in America, and I pretty much agree with them. How would you address the lack of haya and the shyness in the Muslim youth if you see it as a problem? I do see it as a problem, especially in meetings or interactions and events. Do you want to do that? I think that it's a problem, and I don't know what else to say. I think that shyness or haya as a foundational principle is, first of all, the Prophet ﷺ said that every deen every way of life has a distinct quality, and the distinct quality of Islam is shyness, is haya, is this modesty. And that he said, ﷺ, that haya or modesty does not bring anything but good. Only good comes from it. So this concept is really important, and it actually originates in our relationship with Allah. It originates in our relationship with God. That before it's an issue of how we interact with the opposite gender, it's an issue of how we interact with God Himself. And how whether or not we're able to actualize the understanding that He's watching us in everything that we do, and we will be held accountable for everything that we do. Yes, you can.
I just wanted to also add that a lack of haya is, we usually talk about it in terms of gender relations, but it's a deeper issue. It actually goes, I think it goes back to the issue of sincerity and humility. Because if a person is humble, they're not a show-off. And about anything. I mean, is it correct socially, for example, for someone to say, I'm so rich, look at me, I'm so rich, or look at me, I'm very intelligent, I'm very smart. But when it comes to the issue of being immodest, it's basically a person saying something like that. Without saying the words, they're behaving in such a way where they're saying, look at me, I'm so attractive. That's not, that's a show-off mentality. And Muslims, that's not part of our culture. It's not part of who we are. We're humble people. And when we are in the presence of others, we try to remind them of God. We don't remind them of ourselves. So I think it goes back to developing a deeper issue of sincerity with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
There's another one that's interesting. I didn't catch this because I was backstage. It said, I don't have a question, but earlier the brothers booed the coordinators because they told them not to get up and make noise. It was disrespectful. Please pass it on, whatever. I mean, not whatever, but this is the point. And yeah, I mean, I missed that. But if you guys booed them because they told you to calm down, it's a bust. It's a bad decision. But, you know, Allah is forgiving. So you still have the possibility of making tawbah before you go out onto the Santa Barbara night. What night is it? Saturday? Yeah, it's a Saturday night in UCSB. So make tawbah before it's potentially too late. And apologize. May Allah protect us. And yeah, what else was I going to say? That's it. That's not nice. Be nice. How do you suggest restructuring the general order of events carried on by college students during the year, repeating the same thing at the same time every year because that is the usual routine? Creates a lack of sincerity, in my opinion. And there's also something on the bottom of the note that shall not be stated in public. UCI people. Yeah.
This was part of the talk that I didn't get to complete because I ran out of time. But for the issue of servitude, it's on an individual level, but it's also on a society level, social level. So I wanted, like, if you want to know what your MSA should really do and should get involved in to have an impact on that campus, think about servitude as an MSA. Think about if your MSA were to shut down, would anyone miss you on campus? Think about it. In our masajid, if our masajid were to close down, would any one of the neighbors in the community miss the Muslims? And if they wouldn't, then we're doing something wrong. Because a big part of Islam is serving society. And you have to think about people like Malcolm X or even Martin Luther King. When these people were killed, there were riots in the street. There were riots. People cared about losing these figures. So think about making your MSA that kind of institution where people would care. The rest of the campus would definitely care about them losing you because of how much service you're providing to the greater campus. So think about that in terms of building a vision. Don't just do annual events for the sake of doing them. Really have goals that are set in your values.
Okay, so now you guys write questions. All right, there's some good ones. This one, brother, you mentioned that you can't save the world until you pray your 5 prayers on time. However, I have family members who have a mentality that if someone does not pray consistently, they have to kick them out of the house. This makes me want to pray less, and I'm really worried that the door I am closest to with Allah will close without salah. Okay, so there's, I think, 2 issues here. And I've said this before in ICOI, and this goes, whenever you face oppression, even in the name of religion, that's unfortunate, but don't let it become a barrier between you and God. Your relationship with God is your own business. If someone oppresses you, even in the name of religion, that doesn't mean it should become a barrier between you and God. Okay? This is point number 1. Point number 2 is I think it's important for us to adopt the method of du'a la quda, that we are callers to what is good and righteous and not judges to exact rulings on people. I don't know the details of your family environment, but generally speaking, I mean, there's different ways to deal with things, and everyone has their red lines. Maybe this is a red line for your family, I don't know. But we should think about how we can get people to a better place rather than pushing them out of where they need to go. Can you repeat the book titles? These ones are really quick. So, the undergrads which occupy the MSA board don't get along with the grad students due to large age difference. What is the solution? The solution for the undergrads is for them to humble themselves, and the solutions for the grads is for them to humble themselves. Sometimes we generally speak in a small group, we tend to backbite and talk negative about others, sometimes without even having intentions to. What does Islam say about backbiting? In brief, Islam says that backbiting is a disgusting quality. I love the word disgusting. We use it in Arabic, qabih. We don't use it enough in English. It's a disgusting quality. So, it's pretty much what it is. Do you want to take over now?
In 3 minutes. The book titles, again, Sincerity, the Essential Quality. The second book is Rising Soul, A Guide to Personal Development. Other books, if you want a recommendation, come and talk to me afterwards, inshallah, but there are plenty of books that are for self-development that are out there. There's a question here that I think is important. It says, our MSA lacks communication between the genders. Even outsiders notice that there is no communication, with an underline under the word no. How do we go about trying to have brothers try and do things and work with the sisters? Okay, so having a balanced approach to gender relations is important for any MSA. And whenever there's an imbalance, there's a weird pendulum swing that tends to happen. People end up having, I want to say, double personalities where, like, within the MSA setting, it's very rigid and very strict and no one's talking, and then outside of the MSA, there's all sorts of really crazy things going on between the brothers and sisters, but not on MSA time. So this is an unhealthy model, clearly. For there to be a proper process, I would actually encourage this MSA to invite speakers to come and talk about gender relations in its own session, because there are a lot of misconceptions. I remember when I was growing up, they thought sisters couldn't run for president. They thought a sister's voice was outa. They thought, a sister's voice was prohibited. They thought that, rather than all the sisters, raising their hand all the time, you should have only one spokesperson to speak on behalf of all of you. I mean, there was crazy stuff that used to exist. Man, you guys don't even know what the 90s were like, so you're living in good times. But the MSA needs to be educated about what does it mean to have healthy gender relations. And there's an article that I've written, it's on sahibweb.com, and it's called, it wasn't very controversial. I thought it would have been controversial, but maybe the community has progressed. It's called Co-ed Love for the Sake of Allah. The idea that you can love your brother and love your sister for the sake of Allah, and there's nothing wrong with that. And the basis of the article is that if the rules of Islam are applied properly, then what you have is this mutual respect and love and ukhuwah that can only exist if the relationships are balanced based on the Islamic principles. Okay.
We don't have time. That's it. Sorry.
I always like to squeeze the time. You know the woman who's always 5 minutes late? So, or 15 sometimes. But how does one approach an MSA that does not have the motivation to do anything and wants to spend all its funds on parties for the MSA rather than use a portion of it to make a difference? It's okay to celebrate a success, and I have tried to suggest things in order to make a difference in the community. So, an MSA that's completely unmotivated. And I really hope, inshallah, that those who are present here in MSA West, I hope that MSA West becomes the vehicle that motivates all of the MSAs and sort of gives them a sense of direction. So if an MSA is out of the loop with the other MSAs, this is something that you can have positive peer pressure through MSA West to push your MSA in the right direction. Have delegates come and visit your campus and talk about MSA experiences across California. Even in a party setting, for example, you can have a sister come from another campus from, I want to say, MSA UCSD, and invite them over and let them come and talk to your people. Because I think Islamic work is something that naturally people are attracted to. It energizes them, and they just need to be exposed to it. So expose them to it as much as possible.
Assalamu alaikum. Okay, last thing in 5 seconds. I know we're done. Does everyone know what a cipher is? Okay, everyone knows what a cipher is. No, but not everyone knows what a cipher is. Okay, cipher is one of these. It's a circle. In underground hip-hop culture, it's a freestyle circle. It's basically everyone stands in a circle and they go back and forth freestyling. And what I'm trying to say is that the lectures are limited and question and answer sessions are limited. But anytime you see, I won't speak on your behalf, but anytime you see me walking around, if there's a question that you want to ask, if there's a discussion that you want to have, the cipher is always open. So whatever you want to talk about, it's all good, inshallah. Jazakumullah khairan. Assalamu alaikum.